All right, good morning. It's 9:06. We'll call this meeting Wichita County Commissioners Court to order. This time I'd like to call on Commissioner Lee Harvey to take over the invitation.
I've asked Rick Slider with Zach Burkett to give our invocation this morning.
Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, we thank you for this country that we live in, the freedom that we have, Father. We thank you for this state, which I think we all think is probably the greatest state. And Lord, we just ask that today, as we go through this Commissioner's Court, Lord, we thank you for the men and women that kind of guide us, Father, and keep us in line. And we thank you for the proclamations and all that will happen today, Lord. Help us to always keep our mind on you. And we thank you in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Y'all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the Texas pledge, please.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Take your seats, please. This time I would like to ask a couple people, David and Rick, if y'all would come forward from the Community Health Center.
You get in?
Come on around this way a little bit more. Maybe that way we can get you on the camera.
Linda, there's an empty seat right up front, baby.
I saw that and thought it was a
And there's
medal at
another
first.
one
I thought, well, that was really nice. You got a medal this morning before you came here. All right, guys, it's my pleasure again this year to read this proclamation for National Health Center Week. Whereas for over 50 years, community health centers have provided high-quality, affordable, comprehensive primary and preventive health care in our nation's underserved communities. They deliver value and having a significant positive impact on America's health care system. I'm going to deviate from that a little bit. The rest of that reads pretty flat. We all have seen what our community health centers established here, gosh, back in the early 90s. But David, Rick, why don't you all, I don't think people always have a feeling they see that building. It's a beautiful building compared to the trailer houses we had there at the beginning. Tell them a little bit about what you all really deliver to this community.
We do medical, dental, and counseling services for children and adults, whether you have insurance or no insurance. We obviously service the uninsured. That's what we're there for. We're a federally qualified health center, so we're there for the vulnerable. And then we're there for everyone else. And vulnerable doesn't always mean necessarily uninsured. Sometimes it means that, lack of providers in that network, that kind of stuff.
Well, and I want to say this. I go there. I get my dental stuff done there, whatever that good word stuff. And then my medical, I get that. I go get my yearly physical, and they are some top-notch doctors, as well as now the residency is under. Correct.
I was hoping you were going to bring that in.
And the residency now is under the healthcare center, and anyway, it's an amazing organization with these guys here, and I'm just thankful to be affiliated with them at all. But they do top-notch stuff. You will not find a better dental clinic than what you can get with x-rays. It's not x-rays anymore. What do you call them?
Well, they still do x-rays.
Well, but it's now on a computer right then and there. You see all this stuff. So, that's a great place. And then the fact that we get to help those maybe that do need it.
It serves community, and its location helps out in the area that it serves many of the people that live near there that can walk or catch a bus or come. But at any rate, what I really wanted to convey was what the impact this is on our community and how many people it serves and takes care of and provides that gap in places where they don't have some sort of coverage. So let me bring this together and say, now therefore the Commissioners Court of Wichita County, Texas does hereby proclaim the week of August 13th to August 19th as National Health Center Week in Wichita County, Texas, and encourages everyone to take part in the week by visiting our local health center, community health care center, and celebrating the important partnership between America's health centers and the communities they serve. Signed this 14th day of August 2017, Wichita County, Texas, by court. Rick, thank you for your time on that board. David, I see you everywhere in the community, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. And we do have a community lunch tomorrow from 11 to 1:30 there at Community Healthcare Center, Martin Luther King. Everyone's invited.
Okay, and y'all just did a nice outreach to the community for kids needing sports physicals and that kind of
I
thing.
think we did over 350 that day.
Wow, that was great.
Wow.
Well appreciated. Thank you all very much.
That's like the leg. Thanks, Joe.
Nancy, on the recording on this, we'll need to be able to catch this segment. We have to furnish that to the Secretary of State's office. So you may want to do it however you want to do your recordings.
Okay.
They will,
Public hearing?
yeah.
We can do the consent agenda first.
Yes, ma'am, but I just wanted to give you a warning. Okay. All right. I could ask the court to review the consent agenda.
Very long consent agenda, Judge. I'd make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
I do want to say that Mr. Gordon Drake from Encore is here with us today. If there are any questions you had on it right away. I did visit with the Texas National Guard people last week while I was in Austin, and they had one question. We resolved that. Thanks to Commissioner Beecham's background, he went out there with me. We looked at the exact determination of locations. The poles they're going to install there, they're not side obstacles for problems. They're used in getting in and out of the armory. So they are fine with it. Even their lawyers left it alone.
Wow.
That's you.
Okay.
Any comments on the consent agenda items? Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Muller, second by Commissioner Beecham to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 4-0. Okay. Now, Nancy. All right, it's 9:13, and scheduled first the public hearing on the countywide election precinct program. I appreciate the members of the committee, you all coming here this time. There was, Ms. Bohannon, did you find what we were talking about on, there had been some concern about the selection of the judges and alternate judge, and Ms. Bohannon's recent election workshop produced something on that. Which, okay. New laws, selection of poll workers. House Bill 1735 from the 85th legislative session provides the methodology for selection of poll workers for countywide polling locations. For judges appointed via the list procedure in section 32.002, county elections are elections held jointly with the county. Judges must be selected in direct proportionate to the percentage of the election precinct in each county commissioners court won by the political party in the preceding gubernatorial election. Poll workers do not have to be registered voters of the election precinct that the countywide polling place is located in, but must be registered voters of the county. Which I think, I don't know if y'all had a chance to look at that, anyone that had some concerns, but I think that's pretty much the way Lubbock County, which was the first county to do it, they have done theirs, and that seems to have worked. Thank you, Ms. Bohannon. The general plan that has been discussed, let me cover that, and Commissioner join in here. What we talked about a year ago and 2 years ago, rather, you have to maintain a percentage of the polling locations open that were there. You couldn't reduce the polling locations to a substandard number the first year. The second year is a lesser requirement. But what we decided to do to make it easy on everybody, in the upcoming November election, there will be 10 locations. That's what we've traditionally used. Those 10 locations would be open to anybody, just like early voting. You could come there and vote. It's going to be constitutional amendments and not much else for this election, unless there's another special session and something else comes down the pike. In the following, then in the primary elections, those are run by the political parties. We have a contract with them to provide the equipment and all that, but those will be run like they've been run. We go back around to November and we have the elections for half of the county offices and state and federal offices. Those elections, the 33 polling locations we have?
31 now.
31 now, okay. The 31 polling locations will all be vote centers. So you can go to any one of those. And we want to do that through 2 general election cycles to see how that works. And then we might look at reducing the number of voting locations to be a little more centralized. Anything else, Ms. Bohannon?
Just to let you know, the Secretary of State has to approve the application first. For our county size, there are only 6 slots. So, it depends on them after we give them the application, if they approve us or not to even do this.
But we have to have a public meeting and we have to pass it by Commissioner's Court to submit it.
To submit with the application.
Okay. Okay, this time I'd ask for any public comment. If you would state your name, please, and there's a microphone out at each banister. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Annette Barfield. I have a question. Thank you. I have a question. In the 2012 general election, I was an election judge, and at that time, when 7 o'clock came along, our poll books were not working. There was a problem with it. And because there's always a lot of confusion at the very beginning of election day, it was 9:30 before our poll books were corrected, were fixed. So it was a small issue, but it took until 9:30 to get somebody to fix it. We had voters at the door at 7 o'clock in line because it was a presidential election. Our process, because we couldn't get our poll books to work, was we used the paper poll listings that we had, and we would verify the voters from that listing. And then at 9:30, when the polls or when the poll book was effective again, then we went back in and took those updated the poll book for those
Right.
people that voted. We could do that because we knew that those people could not go someplace else and vote. If they went to another polling location, they would be sent right back to us because we were the only place that they could vote. How would that happen if there was an equipment malfunction or internet? We lost internet service on election day, that one day of election day. How would that work in countywide polling locations?
Do you all want to answer that? Or?
Well, of course, we're hoping that it wouldn't.
Well, certainly. But who hasn't had
Right.
computer
Right.
problems in their life?
I just was told her she's right.
How would it be handled different than in early voting? Could the person 2 weeks prior to that in early voting vote at one location and go somewhere else and vote and go somewhere else and vote?
They could without the electronic poll books, yes.
Okay, so it's no different
But
than the
even
2 weeks prior.
But even when we had just the paper,
Right.
those were audited each evening, and there was a young gentleman that was a student at Midwestern that decided he could vote at 3 places. He got to visit with the district attorney's office. So,
I mean, what we have to do too is we have to write a plan in case something like that happens. Hopefully, we don't have those poll books anymore, but still, it's electronic.
but the chances of that being a mass effort, I think, are pretty slim. But could it happen? Yes.
And
Could
what would
they-
be our recourse then? Because, the integrity of the vote has got to be paramount to all
Well-
of us. And if that happens, if somebody comes and votes, we allow them to vote in our location and don't send them away, and they go and vote in another location, we can't take that vote back. It's completely secret ballot at that point, so I just have concerns.
Well, but that was, a one-time event. We will have new poll books by then. Not for this November, but for the next elections we will have. The software support for that is going away, and we have budgeted in 2018 to get new poll books.
Okay.
I mean, could it happen?
Still doesn't mean the internet won't be down. I mean, she's exactly
Exactly.
right. I mean, it could happen.
Yeah.
I mean, do we send,
But Ms. Barfield, my point is, if it's a crisis on election day, it ought to be a crisis every day during early voting.
Election day
No,
times
but
out.
in early voting, you can say, come back tomorrow, you know? You don't have that option on election day.
That's,
Well, we don't close the polls until everybody has a chance to vote. If you're in line, you get to vote.
No,
No?
no, on early voting, it's a little different. You can come back tomorrow.
Yeah, we're talking about
The
election.
last day of early
That's
voting
it. That's what she's
would be the
talking
same
about,
thing.
election day. If they've done it, it's over. I mean, you can't take those votes back. If they've gone to 2 or 3 different places, it's done. If you're running.
It could happen during early voting also. You can't take those votes back either because you don't know.
If the poll books had gone down, they could say, come back tomorrow. We can't do any more voting tonight. On election
yeah,
day.
you can't close the poll down just because your
yeah.
equipment
Right.
malfunctions.
Not
You have to,
election.
on election day,
you
'cause your
have
time's
the-
out, yeah.
Well, you can't on early voting either.
No.
So what do you do if your equipment goes down or the internet goes down in early voting?
They have the paper also, and then we just have to try to get it back up, but that's, with anything electronic.
Yes, ma'am.
Well,
Take the microphone, please, Liz.
We had voter ID requirements.
Would you stand and state your name, please?
Elizabeth Newton, before we had to have a voter ID, driver's license and that sort of thing, you stamped the voter registration card. Why could you not stamp your ID card, your driver's license, or whatever you're using for that? It would eliminate a lot of problems. Most people don't have 2 different valid IDs that are acceptable.
We have some right across in this other building that may have had.
There's a glitch and everything.
Other
Can't
comment?
stamp a driver's license or a passport.
No.
Has our election commission ever met in this county, which you're chair of?
No.
Some of these problems could be handled through the election commission, which consists of you, your county clerk, the tax collector, and the 2 county chairs. There are other things in your election code. By the way, I'm Donna Long, and I have a couple of things to say on this issue. The first thing is that I'm amazed that you're having a public hearing at 9 o'clock when it was announced to be 10 o'clock. And I have an email to that effect. I think it's a little confusing for the public to know when you're holding this public hearing because you've announced it at 2 different times. I still have to remain opposed to the countywide voting centers mainly because it is in our Republican platform that they're opposed to it still, and they have not changed their platform, even though Bill 1735 has addressed some of the issues. It hasn't addressed all of the issues. It certainly has corrected one of our major complaints, but it hasn't addressed everything yet. Anyway, as far as some of the crises that could happen on election day, much of that is addressed in the election code now. You can always close a poll say you have a fire in that poll. You can't keep it open. You have to close it and post a sign for everyone to go to another poll site. The Secretary of State in a crisis can always lengthen your election hours if you have such a crisis on election day. And you'd have to call the Secretary of State's office and get it announced to extend your election hours. I think though some of those issues could be handled without new legislation. Some of the other, I'm trying to remember some of my other comments that I wanted to make, and maybe I'll come back to those later after other people have had a chance to speak. I do want to thank you all for the work that you've done on this. I know you all work very hard and lengthy hours on all the issues that come up in the county, but voting is, to me, our primary privilege in the United States, and it has to be protected. And I do my best to try to protect our election system from any fraud. We know we have had fraud in the state. We know we have had fraud nationally. And we certainly want to keep our election system as clear from fraud as we can get. And of course, that takes judges who are watching everything that goes on in a poll site. Consequently, I like to see our polls remain with the number of pieces of equipment that a judge can watch at all times. When these countywide poll sites get to having 50 voting locations in them, I don't know how one judge can watch that. And that happens in Dallas and in San Antonio and our larger cities. Countywide polling places, no voter is ever going to be against it. When you think of your exit polls being taken on countywide poll sites, that they've all been done on the voter and to find out whether they like it or not. Well, no voter is ever going to say they don't like where they were able to vote. I mean, it doesn't make sense that that's the way they've done their polling to find out whether countywide poll sites are good or not. Anyway, I think there are other people that would like to talk.
Okay. You mentioned that was in the Republican platform. Did anyone introduce legislation to do away with vote centers?
They addressed picking up judges
right
in this legislation, and that's it. But it's still in the platform.
Okay, but no one, I think, introduced other than make that one correction, which I was glad to see that, because that was probably the biggest hang-up we had.
That was a good correction.
Okay, but
and it makes sense. It is taking away. Still, it's one step further of taking away your local control. You have to realize that precincts were first put into effect for polling because people didn't move around the way they move around now, and neighbors knew each other. And the whole idea was that your judge would know everybody that came in to the poll site and recognize them, and they could tell whether they were a legal voter or not. That's not so true today, but it's somewhat true. A stranger is maybe more intimidated to walk into a precinct polling site to vote illegally than they would into a county-wide poll site. And I'm saying that statewide, not. The other thing I wanted to do was ask you just to think why you're doing this. Is it to increase voter turnout? Is it to save money? Is it to make easier on the voter? What's?
I would say the largest thing is the voters. That's where we have the most complaint because you have different locations for city elections. We thought this would be more uniform. We're still going to have the same number of voters, so I don't see how it's going to reduce the number of personnel, and especially for what you stated about if we've got more voting equipment, we need the appropriate amount of personnel there to support and monitor what's happening. So I don't think it's going to reduce particularly the cost of the elections, but it will.
It will save a little money, not much. It won't be a significant amount. It will not increase voter turnout. That's been proven.
Well, it depends on where you
The only
look.
thing that increases voter turnout is who's on the ballot and
What they're voting
what
for.
issues are on the ballot. And that's been proven. So it won't increase voter turnout. It will make it easier for a voter to find a place quickly to vote. But if you want to save money, I wish you'd lobby the state to reduce early voting, because early voting costs the county money, and 2 weeks is a long time. Your campaigns are not done yet. And one state has early voting for a month, which is just obnoxious in my mind.
That's a good word,
And
obnoxious.
no wonder campaigns start so early, because they have to campaign in, I'm talking about national or federal campaigns. They're campaigning for these early voting voters that make up their minds so early. And then the campaigns are still going on, and there can be a tremendous amount of changes in those last 2 weeks. But early voting is very expensive, and you really don't need early voting when you have mail-in ballots too. You don't need both, and we have both in Texas.
Right.
Judge, if I might, Ms. Long, one of the things that when you ask about what the reason is, one of the challenges for us is finding adequate voting places, and it's getting harder and harder to do because of the requirements for parking, the requirements for handicap access. We've got conflicts in our schools now because of the day-to-day traffic they have, and they just don't want people walking in off those campuses now without checking in. So one of the goals, I think, in our mind would be in the future, it's not going to change anything in the first 2 or 3 rounds because we're going to operate all of them, is it is becoming extremely difficult to find adequate voting places.
Schools have become a rather bad place to have a poll.
They're just becoming where you can't do it.
Unless you have the school sets aside, say, their gym, like they do at Tower Elementary, and you can enter just the gym.
Right.
And you never have access to the rest of the school. But few schools have that ability to set aside a portion of the building that has its own entrance and is handicapped accessible. But a few schools do. Churches are good normally, but even my church has recently put locks on the doors because they have hundreds of children there every day. So
It's a challenge to find adequate places.
Even in churches.
And it doesn't look like it's going to get a lot easier to find public buildings that'll fit. So if there is a long-term goal for it, that would be one of them, to simplify that process and use our very best facilities instead of just having to find one in an exact location.
Oh, I agree. It's becoming a problem.
And actually, there was voter turnout in Colorado when they went to this system. Doing some research over the weekend, that was one of the things that I found. And it certainly hadn't decreased voter turnout.
We did send out corrections. I checked with the court clerk. We did send corrections to make sure same people got the notification.
I had a terrible hearing problem.
Okay, we did send out a correction to have this at 9 o'clock when the agenda grew, so that everyone would know that this public meeting was going to be at 9 instead of at 10.
We didn't get it. Well,
How did you get here at
I
9?
didn't get a correction to
The
the email.
newspaper,
Okay.
yesterday.
The only notice I got was the email I got that said it was at 10, and I never got a corrected email.
Okay.
I saw it in the newspaper and told her last
Okay.
week.
All right. Then that's public notice. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Price.
Mr. Morrow, you might be interested in a picture. I'm Karen Price. The Colorado elections, there was a mailbox outside of the post office in Basalt, Colorado this summer, where you could just drop your vote here. And Pam's got it on her phone. She took pictures of it and sent it to me. It's chilling. It's absolutely chilling. And when you go up north, you run into, they've got ballots sitting on kitchen tables, mail this in, mail this, and Montana does everything by mail. It's chilling.
We're not proposing that.
No, I know, but it's coming.
Thank God.
It's
Well,
coming, and it's a wave. And
3 states do it by mail now.
yeah. I mean, it's chilling, and I'm not one to make it real easy for people to vote. I think it needs to be a little challenging, and that you need to know what you're doing and where you're going to go and make a plan for it. Because I guess I'm just a good conservative Republican, so.
Well, if that
I'm
bothers you,
against
look at
it.
House Bill 658 on what we have
Oh
to
yes,
do.
indeed, I've looked at it. That's.
I don't think anybody else did that knew anything.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Oh,
Hi, Judge Emerson Katz. I'm sorry I missed the beginning of this. I'd like to speak in favor of the voting centers. My understanding is we spent several $1 million on voting equipment a few years ago.
yes, sir.
And one of the reasons was to make it easier to have voting centers. We've now spent more money to update that system and modernize it again, which would make it easier to do. I'm not aware of problems that have occurred in early voting, which functions very similarly to the way voting centers would. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the last time that this came up, I asked how many cases of voter fraud had been brought in the county in the last 20 years. I think the number was 0. Have there been any since then? Any instances?
There was one incident, but it was not brought to the courts.
Okay. The only one I know of is I heard that someone tried to vote early in 2 locations, said that he was just testing the system, and the system caught him.
Yes, sir.
So the system worked. It would make it easier to vote. I certainly disagree with the idea that we ought to make it more difficult to vote. We have a real problem in this country and in this county with not enough people voting. I don't know what percentage of the people who are eligible to register are registered. I don't know what percentage of the people who are eligible to register and vote actually vote. But my guess is it's fewer than half typically. And it's hard to have a democracy and to have you, commissioners and you, judge, represent the people if the people don't vote. We don't have a problem with illegal voting, and we could certainly make it easier for people to vote and keep very careful control over who's voting to make sure they are actually eligible to vote. So I would encourage you to consider voting centers. I would encourage you at the beginning to not change any voting locations. Use voting centers and see then if there are places that could be changed so that we wouldn't have to have necessarily as many voting centers. We'd still need to preserve those that would make it difficult for people to get to their own voting locations simply because of distance and that sort of thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir, Doctor.
I'm Gene Newton, and my wife and I are retired from MSU and real estate investors in Wichita Falls. I'd like to compliment you all. You have done a real good job of doing your homework over the years. And change is hard, as you're finding out about the budget. But I want to compliment you because you've done your homework and you've done a good job for all of us in terms of moving in this direction. I'm concerned that sometimes we in Wichita Falls don't move in the direction of more openness and more opportunity, and other people see us as backward. So I think moving in this direction is a way for Wichita Falls and Wichita County to take its place among the counties that are working to make the voting process more functional. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Bohannon, any comment, final comment from you? Commissioners, anything? Okay. It is 9:42, and that will be the time to close this part of that public hearing. This time I'd go to item number 2, is to consider and take action on the countywide election precinct program. Is there a motion to adopt this?
So moved.
Second. And this would actually be to make application.
Yes,
That's
actually
it.
to make application, right. Okay. Motion by Commissioner Harvey, a second by Commissioner Mahler to make application to the Secretary of State's Office for countywide election precinct programs. All in favor signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1. Thank you. Do appreciate you all here. You're welcome to stay for the rest of this really entertaining business.
Can we go too, Jay?
Yeah. One of you.
One of you.
Y'all could rotate around. Who's going to be here? Okay. I do want to, consideration the clerk has unfortunately some funeral arrangements to attend to, and she's asked that we move item 13 up to this part of the agenda. That's to draw 6 additional names for the selection of the public members to serve on the 2017 Salary Grievance Committee, to serve as members and alternates.
You want to draw it, Judge?
Go ahead, and I'll write it down as you draw them out.
I hope they're bigger pieces of paper this time.
They are bigger pieces of paper. How many do we need?
We need 6.
Need 6. First
Cindy Galbraith.
one. 2.
Bruce Looney. Terry Wagner. Hang on just a second. Let me be sure I've got this right. Now, these are the 3 that will be primaries, and the others will be alternates.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was Bruce's last name?
Terry Wagner.
Bruce Looney.
No, Bruce Looney, I'm sorry.
Terry Wagner will not be able.
Okay.
Okay. Redraw.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Eileen
Shillette.
And now you want alternates?
Just draw the names, because we'll have to see if there's others not served. But we'll take them in that order and check them out. Gary Southern. Delphina Flores. Teresa Williams. Okay. Thank you very much.
Those go back in?
Yes, sir. All right. Next item of business is a presentation by Harper Perkins Architects on the schematic design of the new Justice Center. I do want to just preface in this to say that this is very general designs, because some of the things might be a security issue, so they will not be identified in the public meetings, because we don't want to compromise the safety and security of the inmates and the personnel who work in those facilities. Who's leading? Perkins?
Set up the projector.
Oh, okay. While y'all are doing that, let's look at, review the emergency and regular bills for payment.
Having reviewed the bills, the judge, we have to make a motion that we pay our regular and emergency bills.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Mahler, a second by Commissioner Beecham to approve the emergency and regular bills. Any comments or questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 4-0. Discuss and review jail maintenance projects and work orders. Lieutenant?
Yes, sir. Last week we discussed, I guess, probably the short list of the maintenance, and kind of as we predicted, it rebounded, and now we've got more on the list. So we completed 64 maintenance repairs last week, and we currently have 0 open. You guys have any questions?
Have we moved forward on the kitchen equipment? I know we had.
It was approved, and last week I had Tom came in and inspected the floor tiles. We talked about the floor tiles, how they're probably good, but we just wanted to make sure. He verified they're fine, so we're not going to move forward with that kitchen project. You know, I looked at it; it wasn't leaking as much as I thought it was, but it is still steady leaking. So we're going to move forward with that project. I just wanted to get the floor tiles checked first. I don't want to do all the work on the walls and then it just go through the floor.
How'd our roof do through the weekend?
I have no reports. I haven't asked, but I mean, I get very little feedback when I do ask. So it's
about 2 inches. So
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's what we're wanting, is no feedback.
Exactly. No, in this case, no news is good news.
You keep the feedback away if you want to.
Yeah, right.
No. If there's nothing else, then yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Item 6 is discuss, consider, take action on remaining outstanding construction issues with firing range.
Commissioner Beecham did a
Mark just
concrete job while I was gone.
He just about got that finished while you were gone. but he
concrete's
said-
all, the
Yeah.
sidewalks, ramps, everything are in. Went out there and checked it this morning because of all the rain. Wanted to see if our drainage project that we did worked. Even though we hadn't cleaned the side up yet, it still functioned the way we planned for it to. So it was very little standing water, and it was all on the edges, not on the rings.
Okay.
We're going to be doing any kind of temporary fencing for the next phase to get it closed for we start getting ready to use it.
We'll be doing some kind of temporary fencing.
One of the things we ought to look at on that is what is correctional grade, do it once maybe.
Yes, sir.
Instead of twice. Go ahead and erect and that so that we can have it, we charge it against the project, but we put in what we're going to have when we're finished instead of a temporary thing. And that's probably the caliber of stuff we want to cover that area.
So it'll be on the south side of the production road.
Yes, sir.
Sprague side will be the correctional side, and then the temporarily, which will be the inner side once the whole project's finished. Which will be on the east side of the burbs, the temporary fencing back to the west. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Do we need to get some bids for that, or do y'all want to take care of that part?
We'll take care of it.
But let's visit with the architect about what is the likely, so we fencing that's pretty common, so that we know we'll hopefully match up.
Right. We can get a specification that will be used for the entire project and
Follow that.
meet that specification. Because basically what that would be, what y'all would be doing is creating that fence equal to what we will specify from here down to here, back to here.
And that would be paid for off the jail project
Yes,
as
sir.
opposed to the firing range project.
Now, was there going to be any interior fencing of a lesser
Yes.
standard that,
There's a lesser fence here that runs along, and then across here that runs along.
okay.
Why would you do that on the south side?
Yeah, I wouldn't put
No,
one.
you don't need it on the
You don't
south.
necessarily have to have it on
No.
the south.
Yes, north and east side only,
Yeah,
We discussed that previously, just the north and east side.
yeah.
okay. We did get our letter back on the just putting a ramp to cross into. We don't have to put the approach in. I think I saw that from Bobby Teague last week. So we're not going to have to deal with any temporary approach other than, well, we will have a temporary approach.
We already have a temporary approach built.
And
Yeah.
I say it was already done.
Oh, okay.
Just
Now,
cleanup work.
You might have to have, if we fence that area there to the range,
You will have to stop it short and then come across or do something.
come across there, so, okay, so the parking,
You have to
okay,
have that access through there.
all right.
One of the things we also discussed was on that south fence area where the driveway is now to drive into there. We'd like to put a couple of gates there so we can drive a vehicle in there, maybe have it a gravel,
Yeah.
a heavy, a fresh rock, big rock. I don't think we'd have to have a asphalt road or concrete road or dirt
Right.
road going in there. Something that it'd be maintainable, but when we need to unload the supplies and things, we gotta get down there.
That makes good sense, David.
I just don't know what kind of surface you need to put in.
Did Darrell Choate talk with you about what you wanted between the training building and the cupboard?
We talked about either that small gravel or just the.
He's telling me he don't want gravel. I said, Sheriff wants gravel. I don't think he does. So he was gonna get with
We had
you.
discussed grass.
Well, yeah, that's,
Just maintain that way to kind of keep the whole area kind of cooler up in the front area anyway. So if we want to put grass down, it'd be good just to have grass. Just would be something that'll easily
but if
make.
you're gonna put a gate in and drive in there,
Well, that whole front in front of the building is just, it's a pretty wide area all the way back around to the south of the fence and back to the west side of the fence. That's all dirt and needs to be always got to be leveled out and cleaned up, we know that. But something at least get straight back in there to an area to the front where you have
Yeah.
a low area.
If you put grass in there, doesn't it have to be irrigated?
Probably.
I would think. I think that's part of the code.
They need something called grassel.
Yeah, they really do. I'm just thinking that would be, and then if you're driving vehicles over it, you're gonna have,
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
you're gonna have problems. And,
I think your original idea would probably be, in the long run, the best maintenance for us is just to put the gravel in there.
Right. Good base where it'll burn.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's fine too. Just, I don't think the big pressure run would be, it may be what we need, just whatever.
Well, the bottom of it, but the
Yeah.
top of it needs to be the real small stuff so that you could actually push a wheelchair across it. Because it sets up
Well, we have
hard.
sidewalks there.
Well, I understand, but you could push it if you put the right size gravel.
Right.
You put the screenings down on top of the big stuff,
Yeah.
fills in all the holes,
Right,
and it
yeah,
gets
fill it in.
smooth and it gets hard.
just roll it out with a roller.
Absolutely.
It gets pretty good.
We
It's
we
smooth.
looked at maybe a crushed granite, but
Mhm,
did
yeah.
a hole real tight, but I don't know the cost of that thing. I don't know what the
The
cost.
screenings are the same thing.
yeah, what they call number 6 screening.
Number 6 screen.
All right, anything else on the range? All right. Ms. Randy?
Okay. The LEC committee that has been meeting most every Thursday for about 2 months now, and we have made it through, we're right at the very end of what we call schematic design. Schematic design is getting all the big spaces identified where they need to be, the square footage is identified where it needs to be, and we're starting to refine. And then as we move, it's sort of hand in hand, there's a gray area that overlaps between schematic design and design development. Design development is where you start refining those spaces a lot closer. You start identifying your materials a lot more. You define the mechanical systems a lot more. You start into, but not up to, construction documents where you're actually putting the documents together that will be bid on. In that time frame also, we've gone about advertising and receiving requests for a CMAR, and that process has been going on. The committee has reviewed those, and they will start their interviews for the firms that will be that have put in RFPs for CMAR on Thursday of this week. So those interviews will happen on Thursday. And then as soon as they get on board, then we'll get a lot more in the design development. We start utilizing them with materials and how things will go together and make sure the costs are where they need to be. In the meantime, what the site plan has developed into utilizing the information that we received from Biggs Matthews regarding setbacks and overall site plan extents is we've scooted the building as far to the south as what we can up against the setback that is required on the south side. How it is laid out is that the housing units where the inmates will be run north and south with all the auxiliary spaces that support the jail facilities from where they are the clinic areas, the food handling areas, all the laundry facilities, all of the support staff and support areas for the jail itself. And then the sheriff's office is in the area that's along the north, so that when you come down 287 or come from the access road, you will see the sheriff's office first. There'll be one major entry into both facilities. It will function as one facility. It won't function as two facilities. It will function as one. Come into a lobby and there'll be a receptionist there that says you go this way if you're coming for the sheriff or sheriff type issues, or you go this way for jail visitation. And so we're utilizing, reduce the size and the square footage a little bit by having just one major lobby area that would be right here.
Where's the Sally Port?
Sally Port is back and back. The way that it will function is all of the staff and jail personnel will enter through a controlled gate right here. They will park in this area. As a person is brought in, an inmate is brought in, or I guess whatever they're called at that point, they get brought in, potential inmate, there you go. They get brought in. Here's the Sally Port. There's parking for 10 in the Sally Port, and there's also room for 2 buses. So when the big buses come in, there's room for the buses. They get brought in here, and then they come into the booking area and the intake area here. And then they can turn and go out, and then they will go out right here. The delivery for trash pickup and food supplies and storage and warehouse supplies, all the supplies, those guys will come in at the second gate here, and then they'll come straight in here. They can do the 3-point turn into the loading docks right here in this area. But there's 2 major control gates.
Commissioner Harvey, in the other meetings, we've talked about some reduction in the amount of parking there on the west end of that parking lot, whether we need that much or not.
Right. It will probably be cut off about right here. We've done some new calculations on the actual numbers of employees, how many employees will be there during a shift change, the employees that will be in the sheriff's office, any additional police parking that will be otherwise required. Anything else that we've got, we've recalculated, and we're going to be able to reduce the number of parking a little bit.
There's also an ongoing discussion with Vernon College as well, the judges.
The parking lot that was all right here is basically going to have to go away. We thought at one point that we would be able to maintain some of it and utilize a portion of it, but it pretty much is gone. And what won't be wiped out for the need of what we need to build on will be wiped out during construction because it would just be destroyed when they have heavy equipment and everything moved across. So what we're talking about is providing the new Vernon College parking on the north side of the building. And they've got an entrance on the north side of the building that can be utilized instead of having to come around to the west side.
How many spaces potential do we have on that north side? Do you know, any idea?
We have enough room for more than 200 spaces on that north side. That is a question right now that we're still dealing with, is the actual number that we do need on that north side.
My thought was is that if you had that enough spaces available on that north side at some time in the future, don't know when this would be, if you ever wanted to repurpose that other building, would there be sufficient parking for that there in front of it where you could just really slice it off from the rest of that property?
There should be, because the parking requirements are based on occupancy.
Absolutely, depending on what it would be then. So I was just looking out in the future that if that ever became a possibility, that would be good to have that available.
And I think that the dense population of Vernon College, I mean, the number of people that they've got per square footage, because they all actually drive.
Sure.
Like another school that, you know, they get dropped
Some
off.
walk in and some,
Right.
yeah.
And so what we're calculating there is that full area fully used, because they've got different functions throughout the year where they have, you know, the entire.
There's obviously a little more room there than what I recall from if it's going to be an adequate number. Anyway, just a thought.
But that is that actual number that we need to construct is still in question. That has not.
The initial numbers from Vernon College were like 117 that they have in any given day, except they have special occasions where there's additional 135. And I think the judge and us here discussing this, which one of those, do we add them together, is one enough? So that's, the 200 came from an approximation, but actually if you go add those two together, it's like 256.
Is there any room on the east side of that building, or is it too narrow?
No.
I couldn't remember how wide that space
You might
was.
be able to get a drive through there.
Property line is about 20 foot off that wall.
Okay.
The fence is there.
Yeah, so you could make a driveway, but you wouldn't be able to park.
Yeah, you can get around it, but
We did talk about 35 spaces running north-south when we moved that road over.
If we put
Yeah.
it from
Potential there.
right here, all the way, this is existing handicap parking places, up to right here, we can get an additional 35 right there.
Now, the dotted lines there, the brown area where the housing units are the dotted lines, is that also part of the footprint?
There's two different things. We've got future, just so that you can
Okay.
show what that future is, but then they're also required to have an area of emergency rescue type area.
Okay.
If the whole thing were to catch on fire, which will never happen.
Yeah, but under this plan, it's not covered. Okay.
No, it is.
Okay.
This area, there'll be fencing out here.
I see.
That they have to evacuate these guys and bring to a fenced area.
Okay.
And so and it has to be a certain distance away from the building. And so it's basically right along this red dot line that there is a evacuation fenced yard, basically. But they have to, that's why they'll basically be a double fence at that point. Ralph, you want
What do you mean by double fence? I'm sorry.
There will be a fenced area inside the fenced area.
Like a no man's
Right.
zone there.
Yeah.
Because they have to have them in a fenced area outside the
building.
Right, but what I was just trying, okay, so that perimeter line there you're showing from,
it'll be way out here, yes.
okay.
The red one.
Yeah, is there another fence inside of that is what you're saying?
These are demilitarized zone, yeah, between that gap.
Just a fenced pathway here to get into this major area of refuge, depending on where it winds up. But this area is going to have to be maintained. Now, some of it has to do with whether we can actually leave some of that for future, for parking now. If we want to repair it, redo it, that's another thing. All of work together. Now, one of the things that Mixed Land Use and I met with them at TxDOT was our entry point here. And they're not happy with that. They don't want anything west of this access drive.
Okay.
So that would cut us off here. This won't be there, and we'll have to have somewhere. We'll have to have one major entry point, and probably most of the parking here, or if there's really not enough room to be able to create a drive, turn around, and come back.
Why don't you just use the parking lot, cut that little snake off the end of it, just put an entrance there onto the service road and leave the parking lot just like it is?
Well, you could, but it just means that
Pretty tight.
Could that,
pull in, back up.
You can't make a U drive through there.
You pull into your parking spot, when you back out, you just go out.
You can't, but we're not too sure we're going to need that many either. Right now, there's 120, and all of the sheriff's department people are back here, and they're looking at the numbers in terms of visitation, but they have visitation twice a week, maybe 60 people at a time. We may not need nearly as much of that.
Sheriff, will you have patrol cars in that back lot? Is that the plan?
yeah.
So they won't be parking up in the front?
Okay, I've heard two different reports on visitation. How many days of visitation? 3? Even when we have one facility, it'll be 3? Okay.
Excuse me, I think I said 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Is the number still about 60?
I'm looking right now.
It's going to average that. It'll average that.
Ralph, there is room to the east of those housing units to expand if sometime in the future we would want to do that?
Yes, Commissioner. That's
Come right out there?
That's what this
Okay.
guidelines represent. is
Very good.
Another.
We're not wishing for it, but you always got to look ahead.
But you'd have to keep
Yeah.
that area to the north for the same reason you
Yeah.
have it now. Okay.
You got to keep that open then.
Could that little snake down there at the west end of the parking lot be exit only? Because you're going to have people wanting to get back to that entrance.
They don't want
They don't want them there.
We discussed the possibility of being an entrance only, but they don't want people coming out here because it's going to get conflict. They said.
They won't let us have it as an entrance only?
No, they said they don't work. I'm reporting.
Because you got to have an armed guard to
Traffic
keep
is
somebody.
so heavy out there that
Yeah,
They
that's,
do a traffic study out there to see.
Yeah,
Plenty of time.
If you want to pay the price to get a traffic engineer to go out there and study that, because they won't do it.
Yeah, they will.
You have to hire a team.
I asked them to do it on 369. They did it for 3 weeks, sent the information off to Austin, and we got a report. Didn't cost nothing.
Third party traffic,
no.
No, TxDOT.
They put a counter out there, but.
They put a bill across the road, leave it
Okay,
out
but
there about 3
if we
weeks.
move it down to the east, what difference is that? People get on the service road, drive down less than a mile, turn around and head north if they want to.
Yeah, well, it's, they're not coming down here to Fisher Road or if they get up here, they're going to get off Fisher Road, turn around and go back. To get back into town.
One of the other things we discussed, there you go, right?
Production.
Yeah. They're gonna, most likely they're gonna come right down that road straight back to production. But that's what Vernon College, a lot of Vernon College people do now.
Yeah.
And all the jail districts does
The
that.
thing that seems ridiculous to me is that, in my opinion, that will be an entrance only. You're not gonna be going out there. Nobody wants to go out there to get onto the highway. They're wanting to come back to town.
But they've
Absolutely.
got all kinds of places that happens.
Yeah.
Lowe's, every time I come out of Lowe's parking lot, immediately, I come out of Lowe's parking lot around here and I get on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to work, and there's not very much traffic there, is there?
One of the busiest in town.
Just to say that don't work.
Okay, we may be creating a problem there for people going that north-south route back to production. Do we want that much traffic on that road going through there?
There's no way around it.
Yeah, there is.
Vernon College, well, you close the road.
Close the, yeah.
Why would you do that? Make it awkward to get out of there.
The other thing is, hasn't entered into the equation yet, although we've asked David Collins, the state fire marshal, our local fire marshal, is gonna require the ability to get a fire truck around this thing. And if we close something like this, I guess they can drive on whatever is available, but he's gonna want to be able to have trucks over here, trucks over here, trucks over here, and trucks over here.
Well, that could be a control room device that open and close the gate there. I know that won't be a popular idea, but I'm thinking you sure change the specification. I would think if that drive, is that going to handle two-way traffic then? We have enough?
It is already now, Judge.
Okay.
That traffic's already there.
Well, but you don't have that jail there now.
No, but you're going to get, you still have the Vernon College traffic, and it's probably be a little heavier.
And all our jail traffic's gonna be over here on the west side.
Well, probably the only time you're gonna have a problem is at a shift change, when Vernon College is getting out. The rest of the time, there wouldn't be a whole lot, I wouldn't think.
Well, not being a traffic engineer, I asked the question, what's the difference between coming here and getting on, and then getting off here and coming on? Well, it's just more numbers.
Okay. What about, I don't know, we've asked, the city bus, does the city bus run out there now?
No.
No.
Okay, but when that becomes our only jail, is that something that will likely be requested?
Well, that's up to the city,
Yeah, but I'm just saying, we need to be sure, maybe whatever we're doing allows that could come about, but.
Their biggest complaint, their offices are right here, textile. And when we release people out of the jail index, they can go across the street to the textile office. They had to start locking their doors. I said, well, we give them up.
They're locking them on Southwest Parkway. None of them walk that far. No, that's just boogeyman stuff.
Every business gets them walking down the road out there. Everybody gets them.
But just to not, pull any punches that we're doing this, we're saying that's probably not going to happen, even if it's a year only.
So they don't want you having that entrance anywhere along there, is what what I'm hearing you say.
In front of that, yeah.
They use an example that.
From here this way, they don't.
Yeah.
At Home Depot, where they've got that island that's supposed to be keeping people from going in. Well, I know,
I do too. And every time I do it, I think, who designed this? That wasn't you, was it, Ralph?
Nothing bad,
Massive traffic right there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a real problem.
But you can look at the tire marks on those curves and you can see
Yeah. I think somebody that owns a front end shop had them put that in there.
Nothing competes with Maplewood and Elliott, though.
Yeah.
Elliott, right there by the restaurants there at the south end of Maplewood before you get to Southwest Parkway, that intersection. Yeah.
Look at Greg Road and South Parkway eastbound. That new triangle out there, the deal. That thing's we hit that curve, got more and more. They got permanent orange cones out there because people just run over it. They're coming out of the corner.
Well, they're
South
coming
Parkway
first.
tear them up.
We know we have these situations, that are not good. We just don't want to be in.
Yeah.
Good point.
As I said, they're the traffic experts.
But I think we ought to look at that number of spaces there, and then we're going to meet with Dr. Johnson on how much of that other. I did check their lease. Parking is not addressed in the lease.
You don't guarantee a certain number of spaces.
Nope.
The only other thing then that I've got is we have hired before we get to the point that we have the CMAR on board, we have a professional cost estimator, and he has worked with HFA and Kurt extensively on producing a cost estimate that I've handed to you. And basically at this point, with limited information that we've got, it's one step above the square foot costs that we were giving early on. So they've gone in and tried to evaluate and figure out exactly how much of each of these that they're going to use. And so with the construction costs as it sits at the moment, construction cost is $59,490,000. But then when you add all the soft costs, which includes fees and furniture, equipment, and testing, and a variety of information, then you're up to that $70 million that was originally. And so at this point, what the cost estimator is telling us through schematic design, we're still on right where we need to be.
Notice that there is a 5% contingency at this point, which is really pretty minimal in that schematic design. Generally, we like a little bit more than that, but we can narrow it down as we get further along. But there is that contingency in there. There is I have a note down at the bottom about sloped metal roof. So note
Right.
that the cost to do that sloped metal roof, like we've been talking about, is $3.7 million. That's up to you all to evaluate.
Well, I think that was pretty well out Thursday, unless someone has, but.
Right, it's just listed in a
Yeah.
address since it's on the.
What's the one below it? It's another
Well, it's just a
alternate.
different kind of roof. You remember the modified bitumen roof we took off at Sprague here recently, put the TPO on, that's what that says. We can spend another 1.8 and put that roof on it. We just took it off, so
Yeah,
maybe that's not the smartest thing we could do.
I'd say, unless someone has some money in their hip pocket, those are both out.
Well, Lisa may have to go out and dig up her coffee cans in her backyard for all the extra money she got. Man.
I gave him one of these.
Matt just bought him a new luxurious home. Massive new home, twice the size.
It's 3 trailers this time.
3
Any questions? Les?
Looks good. Moving right along.
That's one question, is that, those are the same estimates that we got last week,
Yes.
but we've reduced the square footage by a little bit on that new schematic, correct?
Right.
So those numbers will be somewhat less than this estimate.
Right, and at this point, until we get the CMAR on board,
It's
a holding spot.
Yeah,
Right.
they pick up on the cost estimating
Sure.
when they final show.
Okay.
And again, interviews by the committee are Thursday, just to keep you all informed.
And that's going to be Thursday, and then we hope that committee will present to the court on the 28th.
Correct.
And then hopefully the court will make a selection of CMR. And what'll happen between the 21st and between the 17th and the 28th, after the committee interviews them, then the committee will do its due diligence, checking references, doing the other things to find out and make that part of it. But we first going to do the interview of all 3 proposers and then, do that.
And then the committee will meet and decide what the recommendation is that they'll bring to Commissioner's Court.
Okay. And that Thursday, that interview, that is a public meeting with each presenter.
What are the time frames?
9, 10:30, and 1:30. And they've all been identified, contacted and given their times, and they'll anxious to be here.
I think she did basically just on alphabetical order, just so that there's no favoritism. Any other questions? If not,
No, sir. Anyone? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Okay, we are down to item number 7. Discuss, consider, and take action to adopt policy studying telephone extensions are assigned to an office, not an employee name, so the extensions may remain stationary at this time, as this is more cost effective. There, Mr. Crutchfield.
Yes, sir, Judge. When people move offices, especially in these offices where the extensions aren't published to the public, it's cost. People have to come in, Webfire, Wichita Telephone, whoever, and change how the line is patched down in the phone room, or possibly run a new line. It's easier, more cost effective just to change that extension to reflect the new person moving into that office than to pay to have that line repatched down on the system.
Okay. I thought that these phones now were self-identifying. And I asked Commissioner Watts that, and that was his understanding. So if I take my phone and I go bring it off my desk and I come in here and plug it in, it's going to tell the switchboard where it is, and that's not correct.
No, sir. The IP phones would do that, but the digital phones do not.
Okay.
And we have a hybrid system.
We do.
Yeah.
The IP phones are all out at in the precincts, running IP protocol out there to provide phone service at the barns, at the tax stations,
GMO.
JPs. So.
Okay.
Move that we accept this proposal. I move that we accept this proposal as stated.
Second.
I was just thinking that through just for a second.
Okay.
Most of the people who change offices are not elected officials, or they don't have a lot of stationery printed up with their extension and stuff like that on it. I mean, I was just trying to think through what problems could that cause if that extension didn't follow that person. I mean, does everybody have business cards, or?
Well, they have, a lot of them have business cards. I think it's probably cheaper to purchase new business cards than it is to have the phone line redone. I mean, you're talking probably average $100, $125 to have that phone line.
So it's not
reran
something you do at the computer?
No, sir. It's got to be physically done in the phone room, and
okay.
If y'all tucked your head in there, that's a lot of
wires
trying to chase down.
I've seen it.
You know, it's quite the chore. Pack of 500 business cards, probably what, 30, 40 bucks or something.
Yeah.
So,
Depends on where you order them. There are some bargain deals on good cards.
But other than that, I was just trying to think that through. I mean, other than that, really, that's the only real impact.
That was
printed materials with that on there.
And us, you know, I mean, we have to update the internal phone book, but that's
no big deal.
Now, there might be some exceptions to that. I'm thinking, okay, if we relocate the whole civil division in the criminal district attorney's office, that needs to be in that plan, because those people aren't going to be there at those stations anymore. So that would be some of the exceptions, I see it. But when a person, let's say, moves from I'm a clerk in this office to the supervisor desk, that number wouldn't move there, because people are used to calling that supervisor desk for that service there. So I think that's kind of what you're seeing, but where we have some new or different construction situation that we need to look at that particular case. Ms. Shelton?
Can we make it a rule that somebody changes it within 24 hours or one business day? Because incoming calls, for example, I think the reason that this is being brought up is John Gillespie. He's been in the same office for about 12 years. Well, he moved across the hall, and he has to have his extension because of probation, and all those different people over the years that are within the county network need to talk to him. And so that's one that he hadn't moved in 12 years. And so his extension is pretty important to getting stuff done.
And it's well known, very well known.
Correct.
Yeah, I would say that we wouldn't make this, this has got to be done this way. We can, on case-by-case situations like John, I think we could agree to let him keep his extension, but as a rule of thumb, not.
Yeah. I mean, there's exceptions to every rule.
Extension is not a direct call. But it is within the county, you call him 822 whatever. Correct. I mean, but and that's why I said within the county, he's well known, and with probation, with the various county entities, the sheriff's office and all of that, he needs his number the same.
Right. So you are wanting to pay to move his line?
Correct.
I mean, they get that information from a county phone book that will be published out on the internet. So if I look up his extension, I mean, it's an instant change. I mean, if he moved.
Can you forward those phones from one extension to the next?
Well, usually you have someone moving into that office that was vacated, so.
Oh, yeah.
That wouldn't work.
Yeah. I think that in the case of John, that if I've been working at the county for forever, and I've got that number, I've called it 2 or 3 times a day. I mean, it would be, everybody knows that deals with him knows his extension. I think it should travel with him, just in a case like that. But somebody moving across the room that's not a.
Well, there's no way that can be guaranteed as the next business day change.
No, I'm just saying, if, for example, someone moved offices, that there be a short period of time in which it's published.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, that could be, as soon as the ticket was put in, the opportunity to make the change. But as far as physically moving the line,
You gotta wait for a vendor.
the $100, I have to schedule it and wait.
Right, wait for a vendor, yeah.
No, and that's not what I'm saying, Ashley. I'm just saying, as a general rule, that if you switch offices and then your numbers switch to, that it be updated in the phone book immediately.
Yeah, and that would be, like I said, as soon as the ticket was put in, it's a matter of seconds. We would reset the phone, and their phone would show all the new changes, and then the extension would be published. And the goal is hopefully very soon, the intranet, the county intranet is actually going to have an inside employee directory where it's a matter of you can type somebody's name and give you their extension, and that would be a matter of seconds. That change would be there.
I can't access the phone book right now.
Correct. Because that doesn't exist.
I'm not going to know how to call anybody.
Just dial 0.
We could update the internal phone book and the number and the person on the phone a lot, almost immediately as compared to having someone come in and physically move the line.
Right, and I'm just asking for an exception with John Gillespie because.
And there's always going to be exceptions.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah, leave that with George, and if there's a disagreement, then it comes to court. But I would think you all can figure John's different than a clerical move of someone that was here 6 months here, gets promoted over to here. Because people are used to calling for that function of that person. Maybe they're not so much the person. They get to know the person. But, okay, if we just leave it with IT, and if there's a disagreement, then it comes to court.
Do you agree on John Gillespie? If not, I'll
Yeah.
cover your bases.
Ms. Shelton, that is in the record. Do you want it part of the motion, too? Okay. Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. All right, thank you. Thanks, George.
Sir.
Item 8, discuss, consider, take action to approve SHI Government Solutions quote in the amount of $4,926.36 to renew 5 licenses and add 1 additional license to Adobe Cloud to be paid from $10412.3151 computer software. Mr. Crutchfield.
Yes, sir. This is a renewal for 4 of us in IT, as well as the the recruitment officer in the sheriff's department, and adding Sam onto that package. Gives us access to basically anything that Adobe has. Helps us with forms creation, things of that nature, working on the upcoming intranet that we're working with, fun stuff like that. So.
Necessary evil.
It's renewal.
Okay. So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Harvey, second by Commissioner Beecham to approve the item as requested. Any other comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Item 9 is discuss, consider, take action to approve SHI Government Solutions quote in the amount of $10,401.60. Purchase new Veritas Backup Executive software license to be paid from 104.12.3151 computer software. Mr. Crutchfield.
Veritas software.
Veritas, okay.
Yes, sir.
It was Veritas when I was buying.
pretty good. It wasn't bad.
They
Y'all
must be from North
may or may
Carolina.
not be aware, we run 2 DR, disaster recovery solutions. One's the Barracuda Backup, and the other one that we've used for quite some time is the Backup Exec, which backs up to tape. It's been since 2010 that we've upgraded that software because we haven't needed to, but now with the addition of Exchange 2016, we got SharePoint servers coming online. We have new SQL Server 2016 out there as well, that in order to keep that software current where we can use it as a secondary DR and back up to tape, we need to upgrade that software. That's what that is.
I'm gonna make a motion, we approve that rather than to get into discussion of what that means.
I appreciate that.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Mahler, second by Commissioner Beecham to approve the item as requested. Any other comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Item 10 is to amend Department 428 CDA DED's 2017 travel budget by transfer of $1,500 from Department 428 supply and operation lines as available to the budget line 10428.4304 travel out of county employee to cover travel-related expenses throughout the remainder of the year. Ms. Shelton, that wasn't, it didn't delineate what, what happened that used up your current travel budget and why to add that. That's the reason it's on here for general business.
Right, and as you know, the lines in 428 are pretty tight. And then what caused this was I sent an investigator to a one-time school for interviewing skills. Luckily, it was in the Metroplex. It was a nationally known, well-known teacher of that type of skill. And so it caused the line to be short. I'm still way under budget, especially in 429. But, so I'm just asking that it be transferred. The auditor's office did the projection, and that's their projection.
What are the travel is that to pay for that? Does that went over, or is that to pay for possible upcoming school?
That's just what the auditor's office projected, and that's the information they gave Holly. And so they typically don't go to school until February of any given year, and so they go to the annual DA investigator school, and because we get some money back, some reimbursement for that because of the grant that they have. This was an opportunity that I saw that it's not a school that'd be repeated or anything like that. It's a skills type of seminar.
Oh, that they're going to go to, or they already been?
Already been. It was just one investigator.
Okay, so this is to cover a shortage from that unplanned school?
Correct.
Okay. We like for those to come in before, but okay.
Right, but I knew that my budget was, I was still under budget for the year.
Okay. Have a motion then to support that?
So moved.
Second.
So you're moving money from one line item to another?
Yes, sir.
Within your own budget?
Yes, sir.
But we have a deal that says you're supposed to have actually done that. And sometimes that doesn't work. Okay. Motion by Commissioner Beecham, second by Commissioner Mahler to approve the item as requested. Any other comment? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Okay, item 11, discuss, consider, take action, authorize county judge to sign Flint Inspection Consulting Services Incorporated proposal for asbestos survey reports for the buyout of the properties at 4975 Miriam Lane and 16, I think that's supposed to be 31. Sir?
It's got 13 on
Do 1613 and or 1631
Yeah,
cover your
like
bases.
it. Okay, thank you. Thank you. And our 1631 Wranglers Retreat. I don't know why that 31's in my mind, William. It may just be
So moved.
dyslexic. Okay.
Okay, why? I understand why we're doing it, but I don't understand why we're paying for it.
We pay for it, and then we get there's a reimbursement for 75% of those costs.
Okay.
When we did this in 2007, the majority of the costs are paid for out of the proceeds from the homes.
Right.
But not 100%. There's some of it we've covered, and our expenses in it last time were less than $5,000, and that was for 3 homes. We only have 2 this time.
Good. We're getting 75% back anyway, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And then, in part of the closing agreements with those homeowners, there's an enumerated number of expenses that they will be pulled out of the sale price to pay the county, that 25%.
Second.
Thank you. I'm glad for them this is happening. I can't imagine, it's over 2 years.
Yeah.
Again,
May 15.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions on this item? Okay. That'll have to, right now that will have to be funded out of general fund contingencies. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Okay. Discuss and consider take action to approve the county treasurer's report from June 2017 and authorize county judge commissioners to sign the affidavit certifying the compliance with section 114.026 of the local government code for June 2017. The Honorable Bob Hampton will make that presentation.
Yeah, John. What makes him honorable?
Here's by signature of the governor. Like me being an officer of the judge.
I think you already got that.
I like his other page better.
Well, I see you reading these.
Well, that's the one I like.
Thanks, sir.
That's the one I like. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, sir.
Well, we're looking at, you're looking at June, and the bottom line is 12 months ago, it was 52 million, almost 53. This month is 59 million in our overall totals, which represents a 13% increase trailing 12 months. What I really want to show you, though, is the July on these. Now, these are the real numbers right here. This isn't some hocus pocus deal. These are real numbers of assets that I can tell you, here they are right here. I got the certificates of deposits. And so, just in the general fund, we've got 32 million, almost 100,000, as opposed to trailing 12 months,
Okay.
29,500,000.
Where is that on this page?
Okay.
Back in a second.
Okay, on your July.
On the back of the second.
July 16th.
This says general fund right here.
Yeah, this is, where's purple? That's general fund. On the 2016.
Where's purple?
It's down here at the bottom, or the green.
Green.
This is general fund.
Right.
So here is the total right now, you're looking at 17. So here's the total of 17.
And I should be looking with you on
And
16.
looking to be on 16
Okay.
is on the front page.
Okay.
We just got more.
Okay,
We got
okay.
more investments
Right, okay.
in 2017.
So our general
This
fund.
is general fund alone. This didn't have anything to do with the borrowed money, the $7.5 million. Of course, we don't know.
Yeah, so our general fund, Brother Bob, went from 29.5
To
to 32. Cool.
Which is a 9% increase. So you say, well, why are you telling us this? Well, first of all, nobody likes to be called irresponsible. And,
Well.
I don't appreciate Woody using some of my dad's lingo.
Oh.
But maybe we were both right.
But this is public information that I gave to the department heads so that they could deal with their own respective budgets. Also in the newspaper, I read we were digging into our reserves. We are not digging into our reserves. So I'm looking at real numbers right here. And as we talk about budget things, nobody's come down to my office to confer with me on what kind of financial shape we're in.
What year was the last year
Yeah.
that we covered our budget with reserves?
To be real honest with you, I don't recall since I've been here that we've ever. I mean, I can go back.
Well, Bob, we passed a $52 million budget and $42 million in revenue, so you tell me.
We've got, in general fund alone, we've got every corporation, it's an unwritten prospectus, that if you can maintain 3 months of emergency fund balance, you're in good shape.
Yes.
Right now, we've got 6 months.
Okay.
So I don't know where you're getting
In the cap,
the reserves.
Yeah.
in the CAFR each year, it shows whether we ended ahead or behind that balance.
Yeah, see, I've never been talked through a CAFR or any of that stuff. I'm just telling you what.
Well, that's what we have to go by, Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not really. You can come by and I'll show you this. These are real numbers here.
Well, the CAFR is real numbers too.
Well.
I mean, they're certified by an outside firm.
Okay.
And Bob, I think the 3-month reserve number is a good one, and it does work in a lot of instances. But in our particular shape, where we're self-insured, I think 3 months is not as adequate as maybe 6 months would be from that standpoint only. And that's always been my concern, because as a self-insured county with lots of exposure, matter of fact, I mean, we hire guys that carry guns, and there's a lot of exposure. And I think the 3-month deal is certainly adequate for lots of corporations, but maybe not quite for a government agency like ours. I feel better with a little more than that. Does that make sense? I mean, it's always been my reason.
Hey, you're the caller. My job is to give you the real stuff.
And you do, and I appreciate it.
Well, but in that $32 million, how much of that is obligated for this year's expenses?
What I'm telling you is that this number, I can't tell you that.
Well, the budget tells you that.
I can tell you, though, that this number changes very little over a 12-month period, simply because from October to March we'll start getting our income stream. And that offsets the expenses. And so by the end of the year, every 12 months, I mean, that's all I have to do. I mean, I don't know how you do it, Woody, but I look at historicals. Where am I 12 months from where I was 12 months today? And then I really wanted to look at something, I'd go back 24 months.
Okay. But I looked at,
so it looks even better in 15 than where we are now. Some of that has to do, of course, our interest rates have gone almost double, way up to 1%.
I was going to say, define double for me, that means something.
Well, it's all relative, you know. How you interpret it, that's your job. But my job is to give you the real numbers.
Well, then, are you presenting a report here?
And this is June.
That you don't think is
my
real
job
numbers?
Is June. Yeah. I'm sorry?
This report right here, you don't think is real numbers? Is that what you're saying?
That's all done. Devin works around the clock composing these numbers, and I would never question his ability.
Well, you're questioning somebody.
These are the real numbers as far as I'm concerned. My responsibility. This is where we are.
So we don't, we don't sign accepting this, we sign accepting that.
Yeah.
So, I don't, you know, just saying. Bob,
Here it
in
is again.
17,
It's supposed to work down to checks and balances, you know? And there's fewer and fewer of those.
Brother Bob,
Yes, sir.
permanent improvement fund.
Yeah. Page,
You got 3 categories. We're in 17.
okay, look at,
You got the top one, and then the subtotal government agencies 401, and then subtotal 401. What is the
top
difference?
bunch is, like federal agencies, Spanish, Freddy's.
Oh, different types of this.
Yeah,
This
those
is
are all
one type of
different.
investment. This is a type of investment. Okay.
CDs below those.
Okay, that's why it's broken out into 3 categories. But we have
Yeah.
4.5 million in our permanent improvement
We
fund.
do.
Okay.
And over there on the back page,
I don't find the 4.5.
It's at the bottom in the green up there.
yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. We really need to get together and
Well, we do.
let you see how, here.
I mean, I'm looking at it.
Up there, but
Now, which one?
Alternative improvements is the yellow go.
Too many
All
blocks.
right, I'm with you.
Here's the total right there.
Okay, I'm looking at this total over here. That's where I was, that's where.
Yeah, totals are all down
Down
there.
here. Okay. No, this is road, that's road and bridge there. Yeah, so I need them to go to, the backside. I got you.
And then on the back of that 4-page document, as opposed to the 20-page document, you have a debt fund, 301 in the pink. Right now, we've got in assets, in real numbers, real assets, 1.7 million.
Okay, wait.
And what would you say? What was,
On the back
Oh,
page,
right here, down, right here.
on the back page,
okay.
where it says debt, 301, 1.7 million.
Now, what is that? That's how much debt we owe.
No, that's our debt funding.
Interest in sinking.
Okay, that's our interest in sinking, okay. So,
That we've got put aside to pay our debts.
in reserve for our self-insurance,
Yeah, that's,
That's for the district and county clerks.
in the old days, that's what we used for that 216 money at the top of the page. Yeah, we got almost 3.6 million in that.
and what is that? It says self-insurance.
Yes, sir, and I'm not even sure last time we even dipped into that.
So we haven't dipped into it. What funds it?
Willie's,
What funds that?
that's your 216 fund.
Okay.
County clerk, the district clerk, and I think the treasurer.
Is that errors and omissions, that kind of a deal?
Yes.
Plus, if you have a claim against the county, it could go to that.
Okay, what funds this, Willie? Fines and fees, or do
No.
we just put money in it?
County clerk and the district clerk collect fees to go into it. We started that fund with 500,000 from the general fund. But
To
that
do
was
away
our
with their-
self-insurance, cover
Okay.
those offices.
Yeah.
So if there was a problem with a filing and it
Plus
created
Pay
a,
for accidents, we have to
Right.
pay for it. But usually, if it's small, you try to cover it out of the general fund contingency instead of using that fund.
We've had 3 claims, okay. Fairly nominal amounts.
what are we?
And why wouldn't you pay those out of 216 if they're gathering the money for it? If you started out with 500,000 and you're at 3.5 million.
If you have a
Oh.
catastrophic judgment against you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But the level of these, it wasn't necessary to transfer that money out of there.
Okay.
Plus, you have to maintain a certain amount.
That's what I was gonna ask you, is it a percentage of your,
It's a fee included in those filings in those 2 offices.
Can you transfer that money out from that fund to permanent improvement if you wanted to?
You can, except for the amount that has to stay in to cover the offices that are covered there.
Right, but I'm talking about excess money
saves us from buying coverage for those officers outside.
Sure.
We do it ourselves.
And that's 500,000?
It has,
Well, we put 500,000 to start the fund. Now, it earns interest, so the auditor would have to detail how much you have to keep in there and how much is discretion of the court.
at one time, it was $1 million minimum had to be in there to cover those two offices. And I don't know whether that's still current.
It's
but that's
based
what-
on the amount of fees they collected in the last.
A percentage?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're
Anytime you want to come down to my office, so we can go over it as detailed as you want to do it. Love to do it.
All right, any other
Thank you,
questions for Mr. Hampton?
Judge, I'll make a motion that we accept the county treasurer's report for June 2017 and authorize you and the commissioner's court to sign the affidavit.
He means July, he don't mean June.
It says June.
Mine says July.
No, you're looking at something different.
Oh.
It's not what we're approving.
Long sheet is June.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Motion by Commissioner Mauler, second by Commissioner Beecham to approve the item as stated. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 4-0. Okay. Do we have any public comments to be made? Anyone of y'all can see anything? Yes, sir. Would you pick up, Mr. Hernandez, you're going to make any comments, please pick up the microphone and use it. State your name for us.
Joel Jimenez.
Joel
Jimenez. I just wanted to, I was going to give you, present you and something that happened in Ranger, Texas. Is it appropriate at this time?
Yes, sir.
Well, the veterans in Ranger, Texas, we did a monument down there, and Wichita County was instrumental, and very instrumental, and a lot of helping veterans in that jurisdiction. Because I live here, they called for my help, and we went down there and helped them, and they know we were from Wichita Falls and Wichita County, and so they presented a special coin, and we just we said there was Colonel Palladino, John Limpos, and Jeff Milligan told me to give this coin to you, and then I was gonna
Thanks, sir.
right there, and then there's some information about anybody that served between the wars. I mean, between the year of 1955 to 1975. There's a commemorative coin out, and me and the judge and the commissioners will talk not at a later date on how to get those coins that you are holding in your hand. The one of this commemorative pin. But that coin that was presented to you, Judge, was from the Ranger Vietnam Memorial, and it's only one coin. But this
sir, I couldn't be there. I made the first one.
Yes, that's why they wanted me to announce it. That's all I got. And we'll meet later on, because it's for the good of the people in 2 counties there. Okay?
So 55 to 75,
Yes.
that's Vietnam?
Right after the Korean War.
Yeah,
54.
Korea was...
And it's for us in the audience, they should have gave this coin out way back a long time ago to the Vietnam returning veterans. And then, so this is the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War. And so anybody, later on we'll get together and I'll see if I can get hundreds of these and maybe at a special event give it to people that served in between 1955 and 1975. And they commended Wichita County.
But now that's for in-country veterans, right? Or not?
No, sir. Anyone,
Okay.
anyone that served. If you read this document.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir, and then for anyone that served.
Okay.
And,
So are we gonna call this Korean War K2?
Korean War's not over.
Well,
It's never ended.
Well, it's never been a
This
war,
goes on
it's a
record.
police action.
yeah.
It never was declared war, was it?
No, sir.
It's police action.
No, that's right, exactly. And now, this is why I think, America's stepping up now and paying attention of what is going on right now. And so, but what makes me proud is Wichita County and Eastland County are two counties that can come together and help veterans. And I'm just a vessel and a messenger, and thank y'all so much for covering my back.
Thank you.
Detail. Thank you, Joel.
Oh, thank y'all. Morning. Yes, ma'am.
And just like that, he's gone.
Anyone else? Commissioner Beecham?
Had a good session last week with Indigent Health Services on our software. Found out some really good things that we can do to change our process in that office to really make things more efficient and see exactly how the monies are going out, particularly in reporting that we're not doing right now. I think as we continue to work on that office, we'll start seeing a considerable reduction in the amount of money going out from that office. I'm very pleased.
Okay. Is that all, sir?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Harvey?
I'm formally requesting a letter from the county judge to TxDOT on the rider program for some striping to be done on Holman Road. We are completed our work, and I was told that if we just had a letter from the county judge that the rider program would come and help us stripe our road.
Actually, court can authorize you to send that. We did that for Commissioner Watts, but he said, I'll be glad to do it.
That's just what we were saying. If you get the judge to send me a letter, I said, okay.
Okay. Let's change the name of the innocent on there. Okay. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Waller?
Just fantastic rain over the weekend. I tell you, when it rains in August in this part of the world, that's incredible. Whole country looks good. Work crews and all the precincts are doing some pretty heavy road work right now. Drive with care when you're around those construction zones. We want to send those guys home safe every night. So be cautious of that, and we're continuing to get our summer work done. Got a lot going on.
You know, Barry, you've been fortunate to say that 3 months in a row.
I know.
When it rains in June,
oh, man.
we're fortunate. Same thing.
And I mean it every time.
Isn't the fact that we've been blessed? I mean, our cotton crop is going to be
looks good right now.
A really good cotton crop this year, and that's going to help those farmers need that so bad. They're just, I'm telling you, folks, they're scraping by, and for them to get a good crop, it's well deserved. Very well deserved.
Rain every weekend.
Incredible. Well, in fact, we've actually kind of delayed our paving program this week because looking at the forecast, we can't get it scheduled and be assured when you order that tanker of oil, you want to be able to get it out. So
Boxer not supposed to be down tomorrow.
they are. Jerry was calling them this morning to make sure, just to coordinate whether they want to hold off a day or two. And anyway, he was visiting with them this morning, so they'll get that worked out.
Are we going to do something to get them back down and maybe on that rock box problem? Is that what you're
Yes,
talking about?
exactly.
They figured it out. There's two hydraulic hoses that were hooked up backwards, so they crossed from that works.
Was that done?
In Tulsa.
In Tulsa.
According to Don, we didn't touch it. We didn't do it.
No, but I asked before we get it back out again that we had Boxer with us to go with us and show us how to use that.
And they were scheduled to come, but Jerry was going.
Well, they came once.
Yeah. And that's when we backed
Well, that's
over
when we
the
backed
machine.
over it, our own machine, and broke it.
Yeah.
So they went going on.
Yeah.
Okay, are you going to give them the costs associated with that problem and see if they'll take care of some of that?
What cost?
Well, we had a tank of oil that got sent back.
We just used the old rock box. We didn't send it back.
Didn't send it back. Okay, I'd heard it was sent back. Okay. Good thing we still had the old.
Pardon me.
All right. Anything else, Commissioner Waller?
No.
I do want to thank Commissioner Beecham. The idea he had to get Indigent Healthcare Solutions up here and run that through with everybody was a super deal. I'm sorry I couldn't be here for that. It would have been a better place than where I was. I spent part of last week with the legislature, and I thought they had some problems in what they understood about taxation, but I've sorely underestimated what they didn't understand. I listened to 4 hours of hearings with the House on Saturday. The misinformation by a former Big County commissioner who didn't even have a clue for sure of when the property estimates. He knew when you got your notice of what your property value was, and he thought, well, that ought to be good enough to use to figure taxes off of. Well, that's not. That's everybody gets their notice on their property so they can protest values, and the mineral values aren't in that at that time.
It says on that statement, Judge, that this is just an estimate of what it'll be.
They didn't understand that. They do not understand effective tax rate. There were 2 of them tried to explain to the other 148, but they had an impossible task to tell them, because they were talking about how everybody's taxes went up because the value of their home property went up. It's limited 10% a year. There was from a suggestion we sent in about business property, of holding it to 20%. That was brought up as an amendment. It didn't go anywhere. Even after one state rep who pleaded his case saying his small business he and his wife had that a few years ago was valued at $600,000 was now valued at $1.2 million. I swear I heard somebody mumble he ought to sell it. But at any rate.
And that's a good thing, Jay.
Well, that's kind of it, if that's, but.
You can only sell it for that if you got a buyer that's got that kind of money.
Well, that's true, but, oddly enough, what they never discussed in all of this is pushed by the state of Texas Comptroller's Office, who comes in every 2 years to appraisal districts and reviews their evaluation. And if you're not valuing property between 95% and 105% of market value, your school tax revenue is penalized. And they don't mention that in talking about how horrible appraisal districts are for raising value. And then they got off into a deal of saying that cities hired their own appraisers to go out and appraise property. I don't know of anybody doing that, and we don't hire any of the appraisal people. The board that we appoint, and we appoint our 1.5 members, hires the chief appraiser. That whole Pivotal amendment was designed to separate appraisals from the taxing entities. That part was a great idea. But what is sad is the misunderstanding. We now will face the House version of Senate Bill 1 limited the tax increase to 6%, and if a local government entity goes over 6%, then it's an automatic rollback election. And I don't have a particular problem with that. But what was bad, someone said, well, how much money is this going to save? And they came up with 2 figures that if it went to 7%, it would save people $9 a year or $9 a month. They weren't sure of that. Then if it went to 6%, it would save them 24 or 14. The lack of definitive information, I think Commissioner Beecham, you said you watched some of that or not?
I followed it. I didn't watch it.
Okay.
I was reading the reports. So.
If you can get the rerun of it. It's in the archives of the state. But that goes to the Senate. They can either adopt that bill, or they can go back trying to, for conference committee, and push for their version is a 4% cap. It's horrible misuse of misunderstood information for the most part, in my opinion, is what I saw down there. I did appreciate both our senator and our state rep did talk with me at length about our views from the association and most county governments. So what really is discouraging, they're basing this on about 20 counties in Texas. And that's great. Those 20 counties are growing population, property value-wise, totally different world than the rest of the 234 of us are in. And the House version does have a carve-out for cities and counties with budgets less than 25 million, which will affect about 20 counties. I don't know how many cities. But if they have a value less than, budget less than 25 million, then they right now are under the 8%, but an automatic rollback election if the House version passes. So that's where we are. All right, enough good news. Okay, I would ask that we go into closed session, briefing and discussion with Wichita County District Attorney's Office regarding an auto damage claim filed by Justin